Ariel Pink is Ariel Rosenburg, a producer, singer and songwriter based out of Los Angeles, California, with a proclivity towards low-fidelity pop rock music. With a do-it-yourself approach, Ariel Pink has fashioned a bountiful discography and has proven to harbour a true knack for writing catchy hooks. You're tuned in to Roots to Grooves.
Welcome back to Roots to Grooves.
What up, Jay?
What up, Jesse?
My name's Jesse. I'm Roots, you're Grooves. This is Roots to Grooves.
Is that because, little known fact, if you go back in YouTube history on Signl Radio's YouTube channel, there's a show called Plain and Simple with Mr. DC and Shayhan.
I've not seen that. I'm going to have to go check that out after this episode.
Yeah, they label one of them plain and one of them simple.
Oh, really? Which one's plain, which one's simple?
You'll have to go back and find that out.
Okay.
That's a cross promotion right there.
Damn, that's nice. I mean, those are both good guys that I know personally, and I can recommend that. So
yeah, they only did, we did 3 episodes, but only one of them's released because the other 2 didn't get edited. And
you got some good things in the pipe coming out.
Yeah, maybe they'll be released. They were a little bit out of date, but
you got to release it as a B-sides podcast.
B-side podcast.
Yeah,
exactly.
Stuff that didn't make the cut.
I know. And but this is making the cut, maybe.
Well, yet to be found out. We'll see. I'm not in charge of that, okay? No, but we are in charge of that, and we're happy to be here. So we're talking about Ariel Pink.
Yeah.
Have you heard the name?
I thought I had, and then I I researched.
I mean, there's Ariel, the mermaid.
See, I think I was like, Ariel Pink, I was like, why is Jesse sending me this pop star artist? Because I think in my mind fused Ariel Grande with Pink.
Oh, Ariana Grande?
Or is it Ariana?
Yeah.
See, I don't even know.
No, but I see where I see where you're going though. And then Pink.
So Ariel Pink sounds like it would be like a pop star artist, or at least a band or someone. It was like, okay, it's a name. It seems like a memorable name.
Mm-hmm. That's a good name.
Yeah, and I researched it. And I was like, couldn't be so completely wrong in my whole fucking life. And but that song that you just played, the first one, I didn't know that was them.
Have you've heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard it before, and I didn't find it when I was looking around. I think because I went way back to the early years of Ariel Pink.
Oh yeah, right.
And then I went right to the very recent sort of things.
I mean,
that track I thought was a cover, but it's not. It's an original, right? Mm-hmm. Completely original.
Yeah, as far as I know.
Yeah. And
I think a lot of people would experience that. There's if you listen to playlists on Spotify or whatever, I bet you've heard a couple of these songs, but it's not a name that people are like, oh, Ariel Pink. Yeah, sure,
you just hear like the one song, like that one. I feel like I've definitely heard played. I don't know where. Like I've heard it myself, or in a coffee shop or something like that.
But I mean, this guy, it's kind of undergroundy, almost kind of material, but it comes up in the pop culture.
Yeah.
Kind of, I don't know, it rose to the surface because I think it's good stuff. This guy's pretty interesting. He's pretty weird.
So
just
fascinating guy.
Yeah, he's very fascinating, very, eccentric, odd.
So he's
prolific.
So basically, it's one guy. His real name is Ariel Rosenburg.
Yeah.
But he goes by Ariel Pink.
Ariel Marcus Rosenburg, actually.
There you go, yeah. And
so he's 42 now, today.
Now, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think his name was a mistake because people seem to think it's a pseudonym or like a made-up name. Mm-hmm. But he said it was a mistake because he had, the track that's on, Ariel Pink and the graffiti.
Haunted Graffiti?
Yeah, Haunted Graffiti.
Who's his band, basically.
Yeah.
I think he's gone kind of back and forth on what that was. I think there was some confusion, like you were saying.
Yeah.
And even they didn't really know exactly what was going on. So it's kind of like, here's kind of what's going on in our band. But then the public's like, here's what we think's going on.
Yeah.
And so it was a little bit confusing. And I think that it's something that they themselves have been kind of trying to figure out as they go.
Yeah. Well, so take us back to the very beginning of Ariel Pink.
Well, my beginning, I'll give you my personal.
Okay.
I mean, I recognize, I found this artist. How did I don't remember how I came across it. I think a buddy of mine turned me on to him or something. And I just kind of got into it. I found the album Pom Pom. It might have been like a Spotify algorithmic playlist type thing. And he came up just like probably that song came up. And I'm like, what's up with this?
Yeah.
And I looked at it. I found the album Pom Pom, which was from 2015.
And that's that track
2014.
Round and Round is on that, right? Is it? Or
No, that one came out. That was a little bit earlier, and I think Mature Themes.
Okay.
I believe. Well, we'll get to that later. But I mean, so 2014 Pom Pom, super sick record. And we'll get into this guy a little bit more in a second. But it's a good record. It's weird. It's odd. It's like this guy bases all of his sounds on like 60s and 70s rock pop, like radio kind of stuff, like poppy 60s, almost like Beach Boys surf stuff. And then he kind of puts a weird, odd, quirky twinge on it, and like let's 60s pop is on 10, let's turn it up to 15, and just like take that vibe to the max, like to the next level, to where it's weird, odd, lo-fi, psychedelic, and just kind of turns it up really loud, not volume wise, but turns up the vibe to a strong level. I'm not sure how I would describe this music. There's cool grooves. Like I said, it's all based on kind of 70s, 60s rock, but he brings, I don't know, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but I mean, this guy's broke. He's prolific. Yeah. I'm fumbling over my words here, but he has a ton of albums from 2000 to the 2010s, but I think everything released from 2000 to 2010 was written before 2004.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And I think he went on a writing spree of like 8 years or something, where he just kind of wrote. Yeah. Came out with a bunch of stuff. Early on, he was getting, and I'm digressing from Pom Pom. We'll get to that later, but he just started coming out with stuff, putting it out on cassettes, tapes, however he can get it out. Yeah. And this was before he came out with full, releases.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's from Los Angeles, and but I think he spent some time in Louisiana growing up.
I didn't know that, but I know he's based out of LA.
Yeah, and the story I heard was that he had like, his parents encouraged him to be an artist, and his mom actually wanted him to be an actor, and he'd have like acting coaches come by their house, kind of thing.
I think, was he drawing too?
Yeah, he said he was drawing, and he said, his parents really were like, he could be the next Picasso kind of thing, and
right.
He was really.
They were kind of pushing him towards that, and he was good.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's kind of what they wanted him to do, and he wasn't really feeling it.
Yeah. Well, I think he said like he enjoyed it, and I think he says he's a better artist than he is a musician. Right. Because he's really humble about his music beginnings. Because what I found out is that, like you said, like the majority of all the music that you're hearing now that's being released was recorded from 98 to 2004, during which period of time he recorded like 200 songs by himself, and they're all extremely lo-fi, dirty demo sounding recordings,
completely DIY.
Yeah, made on his 4-track tape recorder. We've mentioned this before. Do you know what a tape 4-track is now? After we talked about
I've seen it come up a couple times, and I'm learning. I'm gonna look it up on Google Images later.
Yeah, exactly.
To see what. But I mean, kind of again, I guess it's that kind of generational time where we're exploring some musicians who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who are coming from that period of time 30 years ago. That was kind of the way to go. I mean, you get a 4-track, or maybe I think Toro y Moi was on an 8-track.
Yeah, we talked about him as well. Same thing.
Toro y Moi. I always say that name wrong. Let me get that correction right now.
And I looked up his age. I didn't say that it's in his episode, so people are going to find that in this episode now. It's 2020, and he's 34 years old.
There we go. Okay, cool.
So that puts him in the bracket of...
This is a corrections episode. We're just going to get it all out.
In a previous episode, we incorrectly stated...
Previously on Roots to Grooves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this guy... So, Ariel Pink, he's a multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, producer, DIY extraordinaire,
just
eccentric pop artist out of LA.
Writing all these songs by himself on his 4-track in his dad's garage, however you say it in America. Garage in England. Hello to all the English listeners out there.
What's up, guys?
Yeah. And
hello.
Yeah, hello.
So I mean, what does this guy do? He makes some warped pop music. It's like it sounds like a long lost artifact. Like, oh, what is this?
So I reversed back in time and I went back to his very first releases on Spotify. I mean, this is the weird thing, right? It's like they didn't come out on Spotify. Spotify's a new contraption that has been released upon the people.
He's kind of retroactively released stuff.
Retroactively released. So if you go back in his discography there, you can see the first thing that they've labeled there, and that's the first thing I went to go listen to when you mentioned Ariel Pink, because I hadn't heard of him before.
So start at the top.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, let me go before I hear the most latest thing. Let me just go all the way back to the past.
Which, if I was going to recommend, I would recommend not doing that unless you really like lo-fi bedroom stuff. Yeah. But I would start out with this stuff after 2010 with, I think, Before Today. If anybody just wants something off the bat right now, go to Before Today. I think it was 2010.
Yeah.
And listen to the stuff after that.
Okay.
I mean, that's what I would say. That's with Haunted Graffiti, as it's on the title, I guess.
Okay.
And that was always kind of confusing. But I mean, yeah, I guess I would start with Pom Pom.
Okay.
That's my second one. I would start with Pom Pom. If you guys like lo-fi and stuff, start with Before Today.
I kind of thought that when I listened to the first track of this old album, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, this sounds it sounds so old that it was like recorded in the 1930s.
It sounds, his early stuff sounds like it was recorded in the 60s. And it's like it was dipped, like a tape dipped in some oil and thrown into garbage.
I know. And I was like, why is Jesse suggesting this? This guy must have been dead for like 20, 50 years or something. I don't know.
It's odd stuff. But if you get past that initial aesthetic, like I know some people are kind of turned off by, why is it distorted? Why does it sound weird or old? And if you can get past that, a lot of people are super into that, obviously, but this guy knows how to write a song. He knows how to create a vibe.
Well, the interesting thing I found out, because that was the first thing I listened to, is I found out that the bulk of all of his early work before the albums you're talking about was all made in this ultra lo-fi home recording way. And also he said about it is that even though he spent a lot of time on each song, like he'd go back and like try and re-record parts over and over and over again until he got it right and then moved on to the next part.
Right.
It's still, he said it's a living artifact of him learning how to play instruments.
Right. And I think you could hear that if you go from these first albums.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to talk about every one of these first albums because
there's a little too much.
This guy has a lot of music and he's really prolific, and a lot of it's really great. I think the first one on Spotify is labeled at 1998 called Underground. Then it goes to 2005 called Worn Copy, an album in 2004 called The Doldrums. I'm not sure why those are backed up on Spotify like that. But 2006, Thrash and Burn, House Arrest in 2006 as well. Scared Famous 2007, and then Before Today is 2010. So I mean, this guy's coming out with he wrote a lot of stuff.
What about Underground? There's an album called Underground from 1998. Did you mention that?
I think that was the first one. Yeah. So I went through. I found out about Ariel Pink a few years ago, and since from that time to now, I've been trying to go through some of this old stuff, and it's. I'm not a super lo-fi kind of person. I don't usually gravitate towards that kind of weird, odd bedroom lo-fi stuff that this guy's coming out with.
Oh, yeah.
But he kind of introduced me to what's possible and showed me that it can be very cool, even though it's not a aesthetic that maybe you're super used to hearing on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy that he mentioned. I saw a little clip of him being interviewed probably about 10 or more years ago. And he was talking about this guy called Stevie Moore, who apparently was the pioneer of home recording music.
Yeah, he's like the pioneer of DIY.
Do you know about this guy?
A little bit. I mean, in our research for this, I also discovered him, and I mean, also super cool stuff. And I guess Ariel Pink has accepted him as a mentor.
Yeah.
For his art.
Well, I think what he said about him is like when Ariel was young, you know, he was into all of this music and all this rock music. And he said as soon as he discovered Stevie Moore, he said like the image of being a rock star in the realm of like Led Zeppelin and all these other big artists around at the time, he said it got shattered for him, but in a good way, because he realized that you could be a musician and a rock star and a songwriter without being a star and without going through the system. And I think that's like what he said. It was a huge influence on him to forego everything and not worry about putting together a band and chasing record deals and all that, but for him to realize that he could just record everything that he wanted to at home, kind of thing. Yeah,
and still get what you're trying to get across through your music, through your art, and communicate that to people. And I think he's done a super good job of that. And that's one of my favorite things about this artist, Ariel Pink, is that he totally embraces the DIY. Like, I can do this myself. I'm using my songwriting abilities and these concepts in my head to make these things happen, but I don't need to spend extra money at a big studio. I don't need to have a big record label. Like I said, he was just putting stuff out on cassettes, anything he could put his music out on, just for no reason at all, just to see what would happen.
And I think he embraced doing music in that way and not worrying about, you know,
like leaning into it as opposed to I have to deal with it this way. Let's just do this. Like, let's do it weird and let's do it big.
Let's
do it a lot.
Which is insane because you know, I've mentioned this in another episode. I used to have like an 8-track tape recorder, but the sound quality is not that much better. Just because you have 8 versus 4 doesn't mean the sound quality is better.
Yeah, exactly. And
back in those days, you know, and we always used to. I mean, you know, we really dove deep into recording all our demo albums on this thing, but it was only to the extent that we could make a cassette tape, so we could get gigs in London, like so we could have a demo tape to send to people, because still back then, like, studio gear was really expensive and computers were like early on, and computers are still expensive back then. And like,
I mean,
like I remember having a 4 gigabyte hard drive that was like weighed 50 pounds and it was this big, you know, 4 gigabytes.
Just a big old brick.
Exactly. Now I got 2 terabytes on like the size of my phone. It's like
amazing. I mean, we have more power on our phones right now than they had on the space shuttle to send them to the moon, something like that.
I believe there's more power on my 5-year-old mobile phone here than there was on my computer I was trying to make music on back in the day.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So far have we come. And I still am not thrilled with computers. I don't really like them. They're not as good as I want them to be yet. So I'm just saying that. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah.
I mean, so this guy started just making music. He's like, I'm going to make a shit ton of music.
Yeah.
Like, are we allowed to say bad words on this? I'm sorry.
No.
Sorry, everybody in the UK.
No, you can't. You can say it in America, but not in England. Because the Queen
rules.
Just the Queen.
There's a Queen.
No, I'm just checking.
But so this guy, I mean, he wrote a bunch of music, like I said, Underground, Worn Copy, The Doldrums, Thrash and Burn, House Arrest, Scared Famous, Before Today. It's synthy, synth pop, it's rock, it's influenced by glam rock. It's like, it sounds vintage, it's playful, it's silly, it's ridiculous. Sometimes it goes too far. And he just embraces, like, let's be so weird that you don't even know what's happening in this section of the song. But it shows a lot of personality and it shows a lot of talent to create what he's created, I think. But overall, it sounds pretty underground. It sounds pretty lo-fi. I'm just kind of lumping all of these first albums together because they are kind of similar in that way. And
were those the ones that were all recorded between?
Yeah, I think most of that was in that same kind of 8-year writing stint. And it was obviously a prolific time. And if you like that lo-fi sound, I would listen to any of those albums. Like, I would go with the Doldrums #1.
The Doldrums.
If you really like, if you want to start with the earlier stuff.
What is a good track to play the listeners now to give them some context and the feel of the lo-fi things we're talking about?
I couldn't even tell you a track off of. I don't know them by name. I've just listened to the album and kind of put it on.
Because I did pick some a track from his very first one, The Underground? Was it My Underground or The Underground?
Yeah, let's play it. I think you probably got a good one.
All right, this is called My Molly. This is the very first track I ever heard of.
And some
Ariel Pink.
Some early Ariel Pink.
Yeah, this is like super early.
I'm excited.
Shaking, body quaking, hair waving, my mullet, hands holding, bust bulging, buzz slowing, my mullet, eyes flaming, heart breaking, soul taking my mullet, and I don't have no reason to take my eyes off you. If I can make it true, then take my heart. Shaking, body quaking, hair waving, my mullet, hands holding, bust bulging, love sewing, my mullet, eyes flaming, heart breaking, soul taking my mullet, and I don't have no reason to take my eyes off you. And if I can make it true, then take me away. Shaking, body quaking, hair waving, my mullet, hands holding, bust bulging, love flowing, my mullet, eyes flaming, heart breaking, soul taking my mullet, and I don't have no reason to take my eyes off you. And if I can make it true, then take my heart away.
That was My Molly by Ariel Pink. You would think that it came out of the 70s or something like that, but that was late 90s. Recorded at home.
Like, can you not hear the Beach Boys in there? You know, it sounds like it's like a demented Beach Boys, lo-fi kind of vibe. I don't know.
It's like if the Beach Boys did drugs, but which they never did, of course.
No, not those good old boys. But that's saying a lot because the Beach Boys were pretty experimental and psychedelic, and this guy's kind of using that vibe, but like even more lo-fi and
yeah. But you know, he did the drums, beatboxing.
Is that true?
Yeah, those weren't drums on that track. That was him spitting into an old mic.
I didn't know that. That's kind of cool. That's kind of dope.
Yeah.
I feel like people are still doing that. Didn't like Justin Timberlake did a song and he's beatboxing on it?
Probably, but
I like that when I hear that.
But he wasn't trying to make it sound like a beatbox. He was trying to make it sound like real drums.
Like, I'm gonna use my mouth for my real drums
because he had no drummer. So he was like, yeah.
I mean, so this is a testament to the DIY kind of facet that this guy's coming from. Like, I love that.
And I love that track because that was the first one I heard, and the rest of those tracks on the album not as catchy for me until later on in the album. I think there's only 2 or 3 on that album.
Which album was that off of?
The very first one, I think it's called. I'm gonna find the name.
Okay, no, I warned.
It's just called Underground.
Underground. Okay, cool.
From 1998. And it's a really bad photo of him, and on the album cover, but it fits the vibe.
Exactly, it fits the vibe. That's the aesthetic he's going for.
Yeah.
So I mean, so there's a little taste of what he's doing early on.
Yeah.
He was a collector of records and of music magazines, like an avid reader.
Yeah.
He had a big hunger for bootlegs and unofficial stuff that he would try to collect. And so I think he's like, that's kind of where some of his influence is coming from, because he's listening to some already super lo-fi bootleg stuff from his favorite artists.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he was also into Michael Jackson. Another influence was The Cure, I think.
Yeah.
Another cool band.
Lou Reed as well, lyrically, I think he mentioned.
Lou Reed is cool.
Yeah.
So skip to 2004, the Doldrums. And we know Animal Collective, yes, you've heard?
I haven't really heard of them much, but Enlighten me.
I don't know about them either too much, but they do some interesting psychedelic, kind of avant-garde art, art pop, maybe you could call it.
Okay.
Indie art pop, something like that. But I guess Animal Collective had a record label called Paw Tracks, and so Ariel Pink got onto Paw Tracks in 2004, and so Doldrums was the debut record that he was on that label with, and so he kind of started. I think the rest of the albums were on that label.
Yeah, I heard he met them at a show and gave them a CDR of his music, but it wasn't the Doldrums. It was he gave him a copy of his album, Worn Copy, and they said they were in their tour van, and it was just
the album right before the Doldrums.
Yeah, so that's the copy he gave to the Animal Collective,
right?
Yeah, and he said it, and they said it was just like on the floor of their van for like a week, and one day decided to put it on, and they were like drawn to it, and they were like, "Whoa, who's this guy?" kind of thing, and they were like, "We want to sign him, we want to put out his thing." So he, when he resubmitted his album, he didn't submit One Copy. He submitted the Doldrums, which was a different album.
Because he's like, I have so much material. I need to let's do the next thing.
Because he thought that would be more commercial or something like that.
Yeah.
And apparently they didn't really like it as much as the other one, but they warmed to it, and they did put it out on their label. Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. Yeah, some of this stuff is
so I know that much. I don't know Animal Collective, but I know that part of the story.
Well, I mean, that's the part of the story we're focused on. So I mean, that's kind of the story of how he got onto a label, and that kind of set him on the next trajectory of building more albums, building more music, and eventually kind of building music knowing that he had an audience. So I don't think any of these first albums, he wasn't doing it for other people or like knowing that he had an audience, because he didn't, basically. Yeah. And he was kind of just doing it for himself, for his own artistic outlet, as far as I know.
Yeah. Well, he said he went on tour with Animal Collective because they signed him and they wanted him to be an opening act. And he first started it doing karaoke style, like just singing over the backing tracks. And then he decided they should have a band. And then he did the band, and he said they got booed off stage, and like no one liked it.
It was pretty rough.
It was like rough kind of thing. And his reaction to that was like, well, the band members aren't getting paid, so I can't really crack the whip and get them to learn the songs.
Right. So he's just kind of, it was free for all, and he didn't even care that much. And
he also said these songs weren't really written to be performed live. He wrote them to record them. Yeah. So it was like, yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, that's what this guy's doing.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to be commercial at all.
No.
He wasn't even trying to be.
He's just trying to do his own thing. Yeah. Just trying to do his own thing.
And I think that's one of the coolest ways to make music.
And people discovered him, and now like his archives are out into the world, is what it seems like.
Yeah. Essentially all these first albums were they're kind of like B-sides albums. Here's a bunch of stuff
tapes
that I have no purpose for. Yeah, exactly. But there they are.
Yeah.
Which, kind of developed his lo-fi status or style.
So instead of like re-recording those old songs, he just was like, fuck it, let's just put these out instead.
Yeah.
And remastered them. Some of them, you say they're having brackets remastered.
Yeah, that kind of like we were saying, he released this stuff kind of retroactively, but another one of the things that he did was end up re-recording some of the songs that were on these early albums and then feature them on some of the newer albums after 2010.
Okay. Yeah.
Which, is, I don't know, I guess some people have different ideas about whether you should, re-record your music, or maybe you don't want to for this or that reason. But
I do have an example of this where it was an 8-track recording that I did of this song, and it was like one of my very first things that I did by myself. And the way I recorded it was because I didn't have a loop machine or anything like that, but I wanted to make this like loopy, breakbeaty track.
Right.
So the way I recorded it is I had this like one drum loop. It was like a 4-bar loop. And I just played it live for like 3 minutes on the tape machine. And then I rewinded it, and I recorded another drum beat that was kind of the same for another 3 minutes. So it had this weird syncopated thing.
Playing them both at the same time, lined up.
Yeah. And then I on the tape again, and I played the bass line. But I mic'd up the bass amp, and then I mic'd up the snare drum. So every time I'd hit the bass, it would like rattle the snare drum. So it kind of sounded live in the room.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I recorded some guitar over it, and it had this like really lo-fi cool vibe. And then my friend, a singer, came in and she like sang some vocals over it. And it was just this track, you know, some people listened to it and it was like, it's boring because it's like repetitive and whatever kind of thing. But then I got the chance to re-record it a few years later on the computer with a bunch of people. And for some reason, like the tempo had sped up and everything sounded clean, and it just lost the vibe of the track.
Even though you're trying to hit the same vibe essentially, but like I can make it better.
And it was in the same room it was in the same studio as I originally recorded
using
it
the same equipment even?
Different equipment, but same room. Some of the same people.
What do you think changed from that first time to the second time, that which like you were inspired to do it another time or do it better?
I think the people that re-recorded it with me didn't think the original was good enough or whatever.
Yeah.
And also we had this technology and they wanted to mic things up, you know, because that, here's the thing, and that's what's really interesting about Ariel Pink as well, is like you get a lot of times as a musician, you'll get into a situation where and this has happened throughout history with lots of artists like Nirvana or anything like that, because everyone records demo tapes, or they used to back in the day, like bands that used to like record all their demo ideas. Even full bands would record demo ideas kind of thing. And there'd be a certain vibe and a feeling in a room kind of thing. And so then when you're trying to re-record it in a studio setting with like the best mics you can get hold of in the best rooms, like you're trying to replicate it but with like clarity of like good recording sort of thing.
Yeah, more fidelity, like it can sound more clear.
Yeah, which is fine, but I think the thing that gets overlooked in a lot of those situations is you can replay the song with a better bunch of gear, but can you replicate the mood?
And that's what's more important, and I think that's what he's kind of embracing is
I think he embraced the fact that like a high percentage of the way his old tracks sounded was because of the lo-fi vibe and the mood in the room and how he created it, and to try and replay that, it might not work at all. Like,
totally.
It might not work at all.
It's kind of a backwards thing.
Yeah.
How it's sometimes more difficult to achieve a shitty sound.
Yeah.
Than it, you know, if you try to do it the other way, and it's like, why am I not getting?
And
what
I think
want?
it didn't work for me because in that sort of example I provided as well, is because it wasn't the right group of people that were re-recording it with me, kind of thing. And
that's the truth. It's not
like,
the equipment that you're using or the studio that you're in, but for example, it's, you know, who's running the studio and how are they using what they have access to. That's so much more important than the specific piece of hardware that you might have or might not have.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my favorite things where I'm drawn to this artist, because he's like, I don't have anything. I'm going to still do whatever I want, and it's not going to slow me down. I think that's super valuable. If you can take that to other aspects of your life, it's a cool concept. And it could be it's a strong value.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's like a massive thing, and you know, I don't know why Ariel hasn't tried to at least explore doing one song or a couple of songs like re-recorded from his old catalog. I think there's a lot of issues at play there with him. Like I've heard him say about the fact that he thinks experimentation in music is underutilized, and people experimenting with sounds is an underutilized facet of making music.
We've kind of entered this period where we have the algorithm. We'll use this hardware with this producer, and you'll get this sound, and just plug it in, and you'll have your product. And I feel like that's lost a little bit. Like some of these great artists that are still around today that have surfaced to the top, their music has surfaced to the top over the years. Is, you know, they were in the studio being like, let's just try this. No one's ever done this before. I'm gonna do it.
Well, yeah, like I mean, shit. Back in the day of like Jimi Hendrix and all that, they used to record like the vocals in the bathroom. You know, because they had this echoey sound or whatever and stuff like that.
I've been in situations where people are like, "Well, we have to use this microphone in this setting because of this, and we're gonna get what I want." And then I've also heard people on YouTube, my favorite bands, like with a interview with their producer or something, and they're just laughing about how much like microphone bleed is on the final track. They're like, because there was somebody in the next studio doing a Thrasher album, just yelling, and there's some bleed in our mic now. So, but it's
crazy. Yeah,
it was a great take, and that doesn't really take anything away from that take, and nobody will ever know that there was some weird extra sounds on that track. It just sounds like a good vocal, and you achieved what you wanted to achieve. So does it matter? No.
And I think that's the thing that you forget about a lot as a musician. Like, you know, like I say, I've been in many situations where we've been in way better studios to re-record songs, and it just wasn't the same. Like, because we weren't trying to cheat. We didn't know what we were trying to achieve. Like, we were just trying to make the same song cleaner sounding. Or
I think that's a lot of times you get the best thing when you don't know what you're trying to get, but you want to go somewhere.
But the mood and the vibe is what, you know. I remember this one time I was in my band. We won the Battle of the Bands at some high school competition.
Sick.
My friend's high school, and the prize was that we get to re-record one song like in a fancy studio.
Nice.
So we went to go do that, and then I was just like laying the drums down with the bass player live in this one room, and the sound engineer was just like, "Yeah, you don't have." It was like I did a few takes, and it was like, it wasn't quite the energy there. It was like, it wasn't quite. I think he was kind of trying to produce it or something like that.
Right, yeah. Sounds like.
Which is fine. It's like, but yeah, we did it, and it was just, it came out okay, but it was, I think the one thing, you know, if you've got all the gear in the world and a great studio, it's great. It can make your instruments sound good, but don't forget the mood and the performance and the absolute. You're really actually trying to capture a performance on tape, even though we don't use tape anymore. Let's just say it's tape. Like, you're really trying to capture an emotive performance,
a specific energy that's special. Yeah.
And that could, you know, most people focus that on the vocals, but really it's every instrument. Like, as a drummer, as a guitarist, as a bass player, as whatever instrument you're playing, you should be trying in the studio, trying to zone in and get. And it's really hard. It's so hard, especially these days when you got, especially as a drummer, you got a click track.
There's the pressure, and hey, it's studio time, buddy.
And you're like trying to be in the groove, but you've got this incessant thing like lopping you over the head.
You're trying to be chill while everyone's like, okay, you're doing it. It's right now.
Exactly.
Watching you through
and
the
everyone's
glass.
in the glass, like watching you. And it's like,
time is money, dude. You're taking too many takes.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's like, I can understand why someone like Ariel Pink wouldn't want to revisit all of this stuff, since he's already did it and he thinks it's good, and it might sound not clean, but the vibe is there.
That's all this guy cares about. That's why he was happy to put out so many awesome, cool lo-fi records, and he's just, I'm not trying to go clean.
Yeah,
not even thinking about it. Not at all. But he did experiment.
He did do that
as he went through, like starting with Before Today in 2010. Like I said, I would probably start, if you're trying to get into Ariel Pink, if you want to check it out, I would start with Before Today or Pom Pom, which came later. Okay. But Before Today is probably
so this
prime.
Is, you would say these are his studio albums, where he did post 4-track type stuff. Like
yeah, I feel like he kind of reached after Before Today, kind of, for me at least, marked a new territory for him, where he was, I think with Before Today, he started making the music with the idea that he had an audience. Because he'd released, you know, these 7 or 8 albums just for his own sake, and after that he was like, okay, well, people are listening. I'm on a label. I'm on a trajectory. Let's try. You know, he just was creating things with that thought in mind, and his prior success allowed him to, you know, be in some nicer studios, and so he experimented with that, I think. Yeah. And some of it's hit or miss. I don't know if he ever really liked it, but no matter what, even his more modern, the stuff in the last 10 years has still got that lo-fi sound, and especially it's still got that kind of weird, quirky, eccentric quality to it. But in 2010, he had Before Today that came out. It's still basically pop rock.
That was the opening track that you played. That was from that album, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, great track, and that one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
A lot of the other stuff is pretty weird, like I said.
Is there another track? Is there another standout track from that album? Because this was his first sort of clean studio recording.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it's still pretty weird.
Yeah.
We played Round and Round.
Yeah.
Da, da, da. I don't know the names of these songs, unfortunately.
Okay.
The one I would play is Butt House Blondies, though.
Okay.
That's the one that I could, obviously I think the name stuck in my head because that's a pretty fun name.
Should we give that a spin right now?
Spin it.
All right. Yeah, that's a lot cleaner track than you would have heard in his earlier repertoire.
Even though it's kind of a grungy, that was kind of a heavier. That's about as heavy as he'll get. But you can hear that grunge, and even though you compared to the stuff we played earlier, you can hear how it's cleaner, a little bit more polished.
Yeah, for sure.
But
it still has a little bit of a lo-fi thing to it.
Still, no matter what, he kind of continues to have that, which I don't know, he likes it and he wants to continue with it, or he's experimented with cleaner stuff, but I don't know, kind of once you get in that concept and you know how to do something really well, you kind of tend to do that, I guess, kind of go with what you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just that's what comes out of this guy.
And they said that was a critically acclaimed album.
Yeah.
Pitchfork placed it at number 9 in their top 50 albums of 2010.
That's pretty huge.
That's pretty big.
So today, that's why I would say start with that record, Before Today.
Okay.
It's rock, it's pop, it's a little cleaner than the earlier recordings, but it's still kind of vintage. It's 70s and 80s rock. It's off kilter, new wave.
Yeah.
Kind of old aesthetics, mixed genres. But good tracks. It's fun.
He has an album called Ku Klux Glam.
Yeah, so that was the next one, and I don't know too much about that album, but it's kind of a continuation of what he's been working on.
Kind of similar vein as that last album.
Yeah, so this guy doesn't have. It's not like every album is completely different kind of artist. He's exploring this area. He's kind of really always leaned into this lo-fi 60s, 70s pop rock aesthetic. And he starts with that vibe. And then he's not afraid to do weird little offshoots within the particular track. Yeah. And he'll mix multiple genres within the same track and do some weird change-ups, some oddball stuff that you wouldn't expect. Definitely always keeps it interesting. Sometimes it's too weird for people. One of my favorite things that this guy does is use comedy. Oh, yeah. And you can see in that last song called Butt House Blondies, he's not afraid to be funny. Yeah. And I don't know, some people don't really see comedy in music. Because it's not the same as he told a joke, haha. He's being ironic, or he's being facetious, or he's simply using funny words in a way that normally you wouldn't hear a song, utilizing. Yeah. And so I don't know too much about Ku Klux Glam. Love the name.
When you talk about comedy and music, there was this band that I'm trying to find the name of right now, but I don't think they had this song called Danger, Danger, High Voltage.
Okay, no, it's not coming. I might be thinking of something else. I don't know if I know what you're talking about.
I'm gonna find it.
Okay.
Feel free to talk about something else in the meantime.
Okay. Well, I'll talk about what I don't know about Ku Klux Glam, but on the cover, I think it's the guy who is kind of his, who he is the protege to. Ariel Pink is the Padawan of, what's the guy's name? Stevie Moore. Yeah. Who's kind of like the king pioneer of lo-fi and DIY. Yeah. If you guys like any of this stuff, especially like Ariel Pink's earlier stuff, this kind of lo-fi DIY vibe, then Stevie Moore is the way to go. Check him out.
He got a lot of stuff out as well.
I think he's pretty prolific as well. I didn't get as much into him because I was trying to hone in on what we're talking about here, but I explored a little bit of it. Cool stuff. Yeah. Like legitimately cool. And I like I like knowing when or like how people organize their stuff. And so this guy's like coming from a very he's known for being DIY, and that alone attracts me to what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I listened to some of the stuff, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I would definitely check him out as well.
Yeah, I saw like a little clip of Stevie. What was his name?
Stevie Moore.
Stevie Moore, like in a interview clip with Ariel. They showed some vintage clips of Stevie Moore from some old cable access TV.
Yeah, I mean
shows,
he's been around for a little while now.
Yeah, and I think they reunited. I saw an image of them together or something, a photo of, and Stevie Moore's like this old guy now, white hair and all that. And,
still doing his thing.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of like an elder of the DIY genre, aesthetic or whatever.
Yeah. Well, by the way, before I mention what I'm just going to bounce to say about that in response to that, Electric Six was the band I was talking about.
Oh, cool.
Have you heard of them?
No, I might have known the name, but I don't know what you're talking about. But they use some comedy, like you said.
Yeah, like their music videos are like really fun. I love them. They did this one album, and one of them was Danger High Voltage on it.
I'll check it out.
Let me just play a little bit of this YouTube clip so you can get a little bit of a thing.
Give me a little idea.
Fire in the disco. Fire in the Taco Bell. Fire in the disco. Fire in the gates of hell. Does you wanna know how we keep starting fires? It's my desire. It's my desire. It's my desire. Don't you wanna know how we keep starting fires? It's my desire. It's my desire. It's my desire. Danger, danger. High voltage. When we kiss.
So we digress, people, but that video is fucking hilarious.
Watch that video. His crotch was lighting up or something. He's sitting in a chair.
Yeah, and he's like all serious,
He's
staring
in a
down.
suit,
Ooh.
but he's singing in like a love seat or chair, and his crotch is lighting up or something. Okay, I like that.
Fire in the disco. Fire in the
disco.
Taco Bell.
In the Taco Bell.
Fire in the gates of hell.
I mean,
what lyrics? Those are very good lyrics.
That turns me on. I think it's not everybody gets it. Maybe that's fine. Who cares?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
comedy is something it's interesting. It might be harder to do than you might think, because I think a lot of people are scared to say weird words or silly concepts.
Yeah.
Weird phrases that you wouldn't say. Like some people are kind of I can only say love. There's like 5 words that you can just use.
Well, also you want to be taken seriously as a musician. If you do too much comedy, you could be seen as like a
nobody wants
parody.
to be Weird Al.
no one wants to be Weird Al. Yeah.
So I think it's a cool thing to be finessed into your music, because Ariel Pink's not known. He's not a comedy artist in any way.
Exactly. Yeah.
But he definitely utilizes comedy
Yeah.
to his benefit as part of his art. But it's not a comedy show.
Exactly.
It's like a drama or some kind of nostalgic drama, but that has funny parts in it. Like you've seen a serious movie.
Yeah.
There's a couple. There's always a plucky comic relief, and it keeps it light.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keeps it dynamic.
Yeah.
So I think it does that really well. I haven't listened to too much of Ku Klux Glam. That's not what I'm here to specifically talk about.
Yeah.
But he does have a song called Stevie's Brain, which I think he might be referencing Stevie Moore.
Okay.
So you can tell he's working with this guy, and he's learning from this guy, and they're collaborating together. Mm-hmm. So I mean, from there, Jay, I would go to 2012 when he comes out with Mature Themes.
Mature Themes.
Have you listened to anything off that?
I have not. I didn't get a chance to really explore past his body of work from 98 to 2004. So his earlier stuff is a surprise to me right now.
The stuff that's the latest stuff.
Yeah. Because I just always thought he was just like a 4-track tape artist kind of thing. So
yeah. So we kind of came at this from different angles, because
for sure
I learned about this was my pick, I guess. Yeah. And I learned about Ariel Pink from his latest stuff. And then I went back. And you started at the beginning, which is, so I mean, that's great.
I mean, it kind of works out.
No,
we meet in the middle, but
it's perfect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here we are in the middle. Yeah, Mature Themes. It's outgoing. It's unleashed. Same kind of it's a little bit cleaner, but it's still Ariel Pink, the same kind of 60s, 70s rock pop, but doing some weird kind of stuff. It's clear, it's crisp, it's weird. Again, he's not completely changing gears every album.
Yeah,
He kind of
same
continues
vibe.
to hit this nail on the head and explore this lo-fi, weird, quirky, eccentric rock vibe, which is cool.
Okay.
So it's more good stuff.
Yeah.
Don't know too much about that record.
Okay.
But I think after that, well, I guess in 2014 he had early live recordings, so he released like an album. I don't know if that counts as a real LP, but after that, also in 2014, is the record Pom Pom. And so that kind of really turned me on to Ariel Pink, and it kind of blew my mind. And that's my favorite record.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite records.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in general. I mean,
In general.
In general. I might put it in my top 10 favorites right now.
Oh, shit.
So it's pretty high up there. Like I said, start with Before Today. If you're looking for something a little more polished though, Pom Pom. It feels visceral. It feels not to reference the name Mature Themes, but it sounds like his most mature record.
Really?
Like I feel like that's where he kind of really came into his sound that he's been working on for the past, decade or two. And it really coalesces into a good, very cool, weird, odd, dynamic record.
What is a good track to play off of that? Pom Pom.
Okay, well let me look at the list real quick. Because again, it's 60s pop. No, it's like he's flying his freak flag. Like the lyrics that he's talking about. He's not afraid. He's like, there's a song called like I'm a Nympho, or at least a lyric,
Right.
like I'm a Nympho.
Yeah.
He's just diving deep into like who am I, what are we, and he's not afraid to be like calling himself out.
Okay.
That's something I really respect, because I think a lot of people are they don't want to explore they don't want to be honest, like with or society. They're scared about how are people judging me, what are they thinking about me, how am I perceived. And this guy's like, I'm crazy, I'm weird.
Yeah.
And everyone's like this. Let's explore it.
Yeah.
Let's be open.
Yeah.
He's not saying there's no closed doors. He's saying what's on his mind right on these lyrics. And he's just a very open person. And that's something to aspire to for me, because I think a lot of people are super scared to just be honest with themselves and with everybody else around them. I don't know what your question was, but you said to pick a song.
Oh, yeah.
But I was just kind of going, it's still pretty lo-fi. It's cleaner though. It's a level up. It's not anything like the earlier, like first 5 or 6 records.
Okay.
But it's a little more detailed. It's a little more high fidelity.
I'm excited to listen.
It's pretty poppy. It's strong.
Yeah.
It's kooky. It's eccentric. But it's still groovy. All the songs are unique. It's interesting. So let me look at the song list real quick.
You're getting me wet.
I know. Me too. Me too. There's a few songs I would play off of this. How weird can we go right now?
Is that the one?
No. I don't want to play something that's too weird, because there's some
Oh.
odd stuff on here. Are you looking for something?
I mean, we can play a couple of tracks. I mean, play
Okay, then
one of each, like one of that you think is less weird and one that's weird.
Okay, yeah. So less weird, a little more poppy, and a little more straightforward. Play Lipstick.
Okay, and then what's your other one? Because we can just play it back to back.
Okay, then back to back, and then we'll do Sexual Athletics.
Okay. Sexual Athletics by Ariel Pink.
Doesn't it make you want to get into some athletics,
I mean, that is an insane. I didn't know it was going that way, that tune.
So isn't that amazing what this guy can accomplish? How it's funny, like it makes you smile, it makes you move.
But it's not like funny, like you're in hysterics. It just makes you smile.
Yeah. That's what's interesting. That's some magic to me, and I really love that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I can't even explain it. Like, what is it? It's not comedy. He's not being serious. He's not necessarily like trying to teach me something.
Yeah.
know what's going on, but it's a cool vibe. I mean, this is music, and I feel like it's multifaceted and it's super interesting.
Well, especially that track, that had a lot going on for me. It reminded me of a lot of different things.
And you can hear how it's kind of crisply produced.
Yeah.
Even though it sounds lo-fi.
Yeah.
Like everything's still
that
pretty
shuffly beat that came in the end was definitely like lo-fi sounding.
It sounded very sampled even.
Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly how they recorded everything, but
well, it's funny because I know like a lot of recent artists or a lot of recent critics are lumping him in with like the chill wave thing, the same as Tori Imoa.
Right, there was some overlap there.
Yeah, which is like I can hear on his latest albums that vibe, but I don't feel like he's being influenced by anything that's happening right now. I feel like he's in his own world and he's doing his own thing.
And I could see how you can loop those or put those two artists together. You can hear the influence from Tori Imoa and you can hear Ariel Pink, but you play a Tori Imoa track up next to it, like a track like that, and it's like it's not too close. They're pretty far away. They're doing their own thing.
Yeah, but there's all these like production textures, like especially within that track, you got it started out one way. You got all the like the talking part of it, and then it like morphs into those. So there's like three artists that I thought of in that thing. One is this group called Death in Vegas, and they're not very well known at all. And I'll have to see if they have enough albums to warrant a Roots and Groove episode. I'm not sure if they do, but
it's a big deal if you do.
You got to have at least more than 2 albums out to.
We have criteria here. We don't just talk about any artist, guys.
Although they were from years ago, so maybe that's the other criteria. It's like how long ago?
True.
But and on their album they had this one track that Iggy Pop was on. And it was
he was a featured artist on their track.
He was a featured artist on Death in Vegas track, and it was like he was doing a lot of this talking thing, and it was about like murdering someone or something like that, and it was like really visceral, but it was like it reminded me of that. And also, I'm going to come at you very left field right now. It also reminded me of an album that David Lynch, the movie director, released, because David Lynch also makes music, and he came out with this really weird album called Crazy Clown Time.
I'm unaware.
David Lynch, Crazy Clown Time.
This is interesting.
I'm not sure if that's his album name or one of the song names, but his David Lynch's music is like dark and crazy as fuck, and
I'm interested. I'm intrigued.
But really good. Yeah, I mean, I love as a filmmaker as well. I love David Lynch as a filmmaker. Not necessarily all his films, but his outlook and his perception, and as an artist, because he makes art as well, not just films. He like makes visual art. And he makes music, and the end of that track reminded me a lot of what was on David Lynch's album.
I'll have to give that a listen. What is it? What is that album called?
I think it's called Crazy Clowns.
Crazy Clowns. So it sounds like a crazy album, which I'm down for.
Let me see. David Lynch. We are both Googling it right now, Spotifying it.
So, but no, Google away.
Yeah.
So that was 2014 Pom Pom. I think that was a pretty good representation of what's on that album.
Okay.
There's some straightforward kind of poppy stuff that's like, cool, I can get down to this. And then there's some stuff out of left field to use your phrase there. Vernacular nomenclature.
Nomenclature.
No, my name is Nomen, or Clature, nomenclature. You know, like James Bond. You know, I don't know. I'm not a podcast guy. Okay, I'm not a talker.
I'm not a podcast guy. And I'm not a music guy.
Hey, I'm not a music guy, pal. Okay,
ain't you pal guy?
Hey, friend.
Hey, guy.
So, check out Pom Pom. I love that album. I think it's super cool. It's super dynamic. I think Ariel Pink comes into himself in this album, and he like really matures as an artist there, even though it's silly and weird.
Yeah.
You know, he's just accepts the non-conformity, and he kind of leans into that. Like, why are we all trying to be conformist and normal?
Yeah. Right.
What is normal?
What the fuck? Why are we trying to do that?
Why don't we normalize everyone being weird and individual? Like, that's the truth. So let's just like do it. So I really like that album. Go for it. Pink. The album cover's pink and it says Pom Pom on it.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Written in weird letters.
Yeah. So I know, interesting. Anyway, So that album comes out in 2014. As far as I know, the next album that comes out is 2017, dedicated to Bobby Jameson. And I feel like that was the year where I discovered Pom Pom. And then this was the subsequent album. So I was like, okay, that's crazy. Pom Pom was dope. I'm going to listen to the next album. And so that's what I did. I listened to Dedicated to Bobby Jameson, which came out 2017. And after that, I went back to his like Doldrums and Worn Copy, those earlier records.
Yeah.
But Dedicated to Bobby Jameson is a little bit more of the same. I don't want to sound like a broken record or say that it's boring or anything, because this guy keeps it interesting no matter what. And there's a little bit different vibe on every album, but he's still kind of exploring the same kind of stuff.
Who's Bobby Jameson?
Damn, I'm not. I didn't look into that. I think I.
The album cover is a graveyard with lights shining at gravestones.
I don't know why I didn't think of that. I think I came across that at some point and I thought I knew it, but not well enough to bring it up and speak about it right now. So, right. I mean, we'll leave that as a mystery.
Mystery for the listeners to search on your own time.
Exactly.
Don't use our time. Use your own time.
This is an interactive podcast. Press pause and search for it now.
Yeah.
But it's still revisiting kind of past vibes and trying to recreate them. It's nostalgic. It's still lo-fi. It's odd. It's obscure. These are the things that Ariel Pink does very well.
Yeah.
It's
good to see that he's not just been this artist that has done these crazy demo mixtapes and found a little bit of exposure and milking it. Like, he's actually gone on and made brand new tracks, brand new albums that stand by themselves. Like, I feel that's a true testament to an artist in a way. Like, it shows true artistry that you can do that. And, you know,
I mean, I came across that idea one time and I was like, oh, this band is so cool because they just change it up every album.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool. That's what I thought, that's art, that's artistic ability. Like, they can switch it up. That's dope. And that is cool. And I think my uncle once said in this conversation that I'm speaking of, and he said, like, well, I think it's cool when a band can kind of do the same exact thing over and over again, but keep it interesting. Like, there's something there. That is cool. Because, I mean, I'm not saying the same exact thing, but in this example, we're talking about Ariel Pink, and you can say a lot of these albums are somewhat similar in their vibe and influence, maybe. But yeah, there are strong differences, and you can see the progression from when he started to these later albums like Pom Pom or Dedicated to Bobby Jameson.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
because he hasn't switched it up too much.
He's not trying to. He's not trying to cater to.
He's not trying
to in particular or anything like that.
Exactly, but no, I think these albums, he did change his concept a little bit. Like, he was aware that he has an audience now.
Yeah,
and I don't know how that affects anybody, but it is interesting and something to say about how these random things do affect you and do affect your art.
Well, when Roots to Grooves gets an audience, we're only going to talk about artists that pay us to talk about them,
if ever.
Yeah. So we're only going to have to talk. We're going to have to talk convincingly about how Justin Bieber's albums and stuff like that. You do realize that, right? Once we get some money, we're
going to be forced into it. We're going to be our manager, our producer is going to have to be like, here's the list of new artists you have to.
We're going to have Scooter Braun in the studio, and he's going to have this long stick, and he's just like, say something positive.
You haven't said Bieber in 2 minutes.
Yeah, say Bieber again.
That's fine. Whatever. Okay, the world works the way the world works, and
I know
it's how it goes.
Listeners, please love us where we are now, because in the future we may just be sucking the dick of the man or something. I don't know.
Aren't we all? But we're here. We're making this ourselves. We are self-producing this, and it's fun for us, and we're glad that anybody's listening to this.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's a good time for us. I hope it's a good time for you. So 2017, Bobby Jameson comes out. It is a little darker. It's somber. It's bittersweet. There's a lot of, kind of synths. He keeps that kind of glossy glam vibe, even though he's doing kind of darker vibey kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I guess, let me see. Or I was gonna pick a song off there to maybe show if you're down to play a song.
Let's go for it. Yeah.
Cool. Because one of the things that he does, I mean, Ariel Pink, he does like a shtick, you know. Ariel Pink, like, he does different songs and he tries to keep this shtick of keeping like, okay, I'm gonna do this weird ass thing for this 3-minute song, and I'm gonna do a weird ass thing for this 3-minute song, even though they're all in the realm of, you know, kind of a pop rock jam. It starts off with "Time to Meet Your God," which is a pretty cool jam. It's a little repetitive for me. I wish it changed up a little bit, but it is cool. I'm not saying don't play that one right now.
Okay.
Or I mean, I am saying don't play that one right now.
You are saying do not.
I'm saying no.
Okay.
But a lot of songs, they have their own unique identity, even though they're within that. And I really respect that about all artists that can achieve that.
Yeah.
I think that's super cool, and I think it's a difficult thing to do well. So you're down to play a song right now?
For sure.
Okay, let's do Another Weekend.
Another Weekend.
It's off of 2017, Bobby Jameson, dedicated to Bobby Jameson, Ariel Pink.
Another weekend out of
That's got me wanting to listen to that album now.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's chill.
For reals, because
Like-
that's like that sounds like it's straight out of the 60s, 70s, but something you didn't hear from then. Like,
Exactly. Like it just kind of conceptually, like you take the context that you're in,
yeah.
but he's reaching towards these nostalgic kind of vintage vibes from someplace else in time and bringing it back through like a lo-fi nostalgic filter and providing these nice melodies and grooves and vibes.
And it's like a movie as well, because I did research. Bobby James is a real person, and he was kind of someone that was on the up in the 60s. And
He was an artist.
He was an artist, and he was kind of promoted as like as a pop star. Like the major label he was signed to, he was trying to promote him really heavily, and he got invited to join the Monkees, but he turned it down. So he could have been one of the Monkees, but he wasn't.
Interesting. That's a pretty huge opportunity.
Yeah,
Most people would have taken that, and I'm sure somebody did.
and he opened for the Beach Boys and Chubby Checker. And
So he was right in there with
so he this guy like had a brief flirtation with the mainstream labels in the 60s, and then he kind of got in trouble with them in some kind of way, like fell out of his managers or whatever, and then he went into the underground of LA, and he was like working with like Frank Zappa on a few things and stuff like that.
that makes a lot of sense for the album title then.
Yeah, and he had a lot of alcoholism problems and stuff like that. And so it's kind of interesting. I think that also because I was listening to that song and I was reading about this guy, Bobby Jameson. And it's sort of, it's like that's why it also says kind of like a movie. Like maybe it's like if you go and check out Bobby Jameson's Wikipedia page and read about him, and then go and listen to this album, you might feel something different. Like
That's interesting, different context. I didn't know that. I'm glad you looked that up during that break, because I was just jamming away.
No, yeah, and I think
being unproductive while we played that song.
You being unproductive. You weren't making popcorn or anything like that. And,
Nah, man.
And we don't have a microwave in the studio, by the way. But if we did, popcorn would be a thing.
It would be popping.
And I think, obviously, like that as an artist or someone or an individual that Ariel Pink knew about and wanted to highlight.
That's super cool. I'm glad you looked that up, because that is cool, and I can see the relation.
Yeah.
You can see how he would relate to that, because it sounds like he's doing kind of a similar-ish at least thing.
Yeah.
As far as being true to the lo-fi DIY status and the kind of nonconformist. I don't need a label. I don't need to go this mainstream route to do what I want to do and fulfill myself.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. You can fulfill yourself without any outside context.
Exactly, yeah.
And another reason why I respect Ariel Pink. I think that's super cool, and I just learned that off the spot because you looked that up right now.
I mean, that's the beauty of music and people and people's inspirations and people sharing their inspirations. Is that you get to discover these other worlds and now, I feel like Bobby Jameson, I mean, that's a super interesting story by itself.
Yeah,
We'd never have known about it if Ariel Pink.
And that's what we're here on Roots to Grooves to do. I mean, we're here to explore for ourselves and for everyone listening. We're part of this process too.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the context why we wanted to talk about this kind of stuff, because we're learning along with everybody else, and we're always part of a process that's ongoing, and there was never an end.
There's never an end.
And there was never a beginning, and we're just all going in this cycle.
It's the infinite loop.
It's a cycle, yeah. Where are we in the cycle is the only question.
Where are we in the cycle?
So that's awesome. I think after that album, I think Ariel Pink came out with a single that was I mean, I don't know, bro. Where is it? Short Man Syndrome, which came out in 2020.
Listen. Yeah.
I think I listened to it and it was pretty cool. I don't.
There's an album called Loverboy from 2019. Is that original or is that old stuff?
I don't even see that on my Spotify. So I mean, I'm just looking at the popular releases, but I don't know what you're talking about, bro.
Look at his discography. Sorry, I just had to burp there.
Oh no, okay, no, I see that, but I don't know what that is exactly. That's interesting. I don't know if it's a full-length LP, but it does say Haunted Graffiti on it, who's been his band.
Yeah, it looks old. He's got an old photo of him on the cover.
So it might be some kind of re-release type deal or some kind of compilation. I don't know. I don't want to speak to that. I don't want to say anything wrong, so I won't say much.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Ariel Pink.
I mean, we got the technology. We can look it up on the spot.
If you can spell things in time to not have too much dead air, which is my challenge right now.
We're a show who's, we're doing this live. We're researching live on the spot, guys.
Yeah, we're like giving you fresh information
this
right now.
Is the freshest off the modern contemporary Wikipedia pages.
You can Google this yourself, but hey, don't.
We're here to Google it for you guys.
We're here to Google it for you.
All right, so just throw on some Ariel Pink while we're Googling and stuff, and it's all good. As I haven't listened to that though. So, I mean, Dedicated to Bobby Jameson was the last thing that I heard.
I think it's a reissue. So this was originally, it says this is his 6th album, originally released in 2002.
Okay. So, I mean, this guy's, he kind of
he goes back and forth between like new shit and old shit.
Yeah, he writes stuff, then he writes...
It's really cool. It's kind of cool in a way. Like,
no, totally.
To just be like, here's a new album. And here's an album that I recorded 10 years ago.
Yeah. That's just fun. Like, he has so much material that he can do that. He's not just writing, I need to make an album for 2020. Like, there it is. He has the material and he's just sharing it with everybody on his own time whenever he feels like it's time to share it. And that's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Should we close out then with the track?
Yeah, we can close out with the track. Do you have one loaded up?
I don't really. I mean, do we want to play something that neither of us have heard before, like his new one, or do we want to play something, or like one of your selections from one of his older albums?
Do we want something whack, or are we looking for something not so whack?
Whack or non-whack?
Okay, I'm looking real quick. I don't know if you have anything to say to close us out while I look.
I would like to say follow Signl Radio everywhere. At Signl Radio, that's SIGNL Radio. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. You can find us on the website, signalradio.com, where you can find all of these episodes for Roots to Grooves. And join our email list as well. And also...
We're going to go out big if you're down. White Freckles.
Ariel
Pink. This is off of the 2014 album Pom Pom. And I'm just going with that album because that is the album I most relate to. And that's what I want to relate to anybody who's listening right now.
Okay.
This track blows my mind. It's whack. It's just, it's fun. It's a little intense. If you don't like it, turn it off and we're done. Okay? And that's fine.
And it's also the end of the episode as well. So if you turn it off and we're done.
We're done anyway. So we win.
Done anyway. So we win.
What are you going to do?
White Freckles.
Hey, this has been Roots to Grooves, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Roots to Grooves is a production of Signl Radio. For more music and independent culture, visit signalradio.com.